20 years after 9/11, America has been targeted by terrorists again. It wasn't anything like 9/11, but an audacious attempt nonetheless. A terrorist took 4 people hostage inside a synagogue in Texas. The mastermind was a British citizen, but a Pakistani by origin. He was shot and killed after a tense 11-hour-long standoff. What did he want? Why did he take American hostages? To secure the release of this woman. Her name is Aafia Siddiqui. The world knows her as Lady Al-Qaeda. Siddiqui is the sister of the terrorist behind the Texas hostage crisis. She's serving jail time in the US, an 86-year-long prison sentence for trying to murder American military officers. Her brother wanted her released, so he took hostages and was eventually shot and killed. This story is extremely significant. It underlines 2 things. Number 1, Pakistan poses a terror threat not just to its neighbors but the whole world. Islamabad sees Aafia Siddiqui as a living martyr. It wants to secure her release. And point number 2, the United Kingdom is becoming a new base for such radicals. So you have a Pakistani Brit attacking Jews in the US to get Lady Al-Qaeda out of jail. On Gravitas tonight, we'll decode what this means. We start with what happened in Texas on Saturday. A British-Pakistani terrorist triggered a hostage crisis. His name was Malik Faisal Akram. He flew to the US from the UK barely 2 weeks back, just before New Year's. He was seeking the release of his sister, Aafia Siddiqui. Siddiqui is serving her sentence at a prison in Fort Worth. This is 20 miles away from the synagogue where the hostage crisis took place. On Saturday, Akram walked into the synagogue armed. For 11 hours, he controlled the hostages and the synagogue at gunpoint. Finally, he was shot dead by local security officials. Thankfully, no one else was hurt. US President Joe Biden has called this episode an act of terrorism.
This was an act of terror. This is an act of terror. And not only was related to someone who had been arrested, I might add, 15 years ago and been in jail for 10 years.
The United Kingdom has condemned the attack. So has Israel. Prime Minister Naftali Bennett had some strong words. This is what he said, and I'm quoting, "This event is a stark reminder that anti-Semitism is still alive and we must continue to fight it worldwide." This hostage crisis raises serious concerns because of 2 reasons. The first one is the involvement of an Al-Qaeda figure, and the second one is the use of the United Kingdom as a launch pad. Aafia Siddiqui, aka Lady Al-Qaeda, is a Pakistani citizen. She studied neuroscience in the US and was married to a doctor in Karachi. She came on the radar of American law enforcement after 9/11. In 2004, she was described as an Al-Qaeda operative and facilitator. 4 years later, she was detained by American authorities in Afghanistan. They found handwritten notes from her describing how dirty bombs could be made. Also in her notes were potential American locations for quote-unquote mass casualty attacks. When the Americans began interrogating Aafia Siddiqui, she tried to attack them. She grabbed an M4 rifle from a US Army officer and opened fire on the interrogators. She ended up in jail and is serving an 86-year prison sentence. The conviction happened in 2010, and since then, Pakistan has been glorifying her. Former Pakistani Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Gilani called her a daughter of the nation. He vowed to campaign for her release. Successive Pakistani governments have supported this cause, even pushing for a prisoner swap. In 2018, Pakistan's present Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi met Siddiqui's sister, and he's said to have discussed possible ways forward, I'm quoting, possible ways forward for her repatriation. But Pakistan failed to convince the Americans. So sitting in the United Kingdom, her brother came up with this hostage plan. And that makes the case even more complicated. The use of British territory by radicals, that's another point of concern. Today, British police arrested 2 teenagers in Manchester. They're believed to be connected to this hostage crisis in Texas. They're being questioned. Officers from the local counter-terror policing unit are involved in this. So even London is not ruling out the terror angle. In fact, the threat of Islamic terrorism is definitely on the rise in the UK. In November last year, the British government raised the threat level to severe. This was after 2 violent incidents. In October 2021, a British lawmaker was stabbed to death. a sitting MP. A few weeks later, a suicide bomber blew himself up outside a hospital in Liverpool. And these are not isolated cases. Radical Islam is a real threat in the UK. The numbers corroborate this. Between 9/11 and March 2021, British officials have made close to 5,000 arrests. They were labelled as terrorism-related arrests, 5,000. Since the pandemic began, British police have foiled 7 late-stage terror attacks. By September last year, a total of 188 arrests were made. And in March, 157 British prisoners were classified as quote-unquote Islamist extremists. Britain's intelligence agency, the MI5, has also released some numbers. As of April 2020, MI5 was tracking more than 43,000 people. These people, they said, pose a quote-unquote potential terrorist threat to the United Kingdom. 43,000. Now, British nationals are launching terror attacks on foreign land. Look at how the sequence of events unfolded. America captures a terrorist. Pakistan turns her into an icon, mobilizes the state machinery to get her out of jail, ends up radicalizing a British citizen who then takes Jews in the US hostage. This is what a terror state can do. The UK can no longer afford to look the other way. Radicals on British soil pose a threat to its friends and its own people. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.